Welcome to the programme. This week it's a touch of town and country, because later on I'll be coming over all rugged and rural in the mighty Nissan Patrol GR. But first of all, Ginny Buckley tests a car very much more suited to the road, the Honda Civic.
The Honda Civic has the kind of sales figures that would send most manufacturers delirious with joy. 13.5 million of the last 6 models have been sold around the world. And what's more, the people that buy them absolutely love them. They come back time and time again. So what's the problem? Well, it's just a bit boring, isn't it? No, not anymore. What strikes you straight away is how radically different this car has become. In the past, it really did appeal to the traditional, older buyer. But now Honda are all out to get a much younger market into this car, and it shows in the design. Take the badge away and you'd never know it was a Honda. Well, Honda haven't been quite as brave in here. It's a bit dark and there is far too much black plastic. Why do manufacturers keep on using it? Because it just looks awful. What they have done though is rearrange things. It's very streamlined and everything does feel very good quality. There are a couple of unusual touches as well, like this strangely positioned gear stick, familiar to people that drive an MPV or a van, but very unusual in a hatchback. Apparently, as well as freeing up some floor space down there, its closeness to the steering wheel means that it's easier to change gear. Oh well, let's give it a try. When the Civic goes on sale in January, this 5-door hatch will be the first model available, followed by the coupe in the spring and the 3-door hatch in the autumn. And the good news for motorists who want to buy British is that they'll both be built at Honda's plant in Swindon. When the first models of the Civic are available, there'll be a choice of 2 engines, an 89 brake horsepower 1.4 and this 108 brake horsepower 1.6 unit. Now, Honda's engineers have tinkered with both of the engines and you really can feel the difference out on the road, particularly in the mid-range. It really does feel quite punchy now. On paper, it's also quicker and more economic than both the 1.6 Focus and the Golf. And something to look forward to will be the sporty 210 brake horsepower 2-litre version that will arrive next autumn and will carry the badge Type R. After a spell behind the wheel in the Civic, you notice a couple of things. The first is just how much room there is in here. It's very light and airy, and there's even plenty of room for the passengers in the back. The second is the quality of it. It does feel like a really well-built car. It gives you confidence that it's going to be around to withstand the rigours of family motoring, which is a very important thing. So, what about price? After all, this is a very tightly fought market. The cars in this sector make up for around a third of all new cars sold in Britain. And at the end of the day, it often comes down to price. Well, the new Civic will start at £11,995 on the road, with the top of the range costing just under £14,000. With prices like that, I'd say cars like the Ford Focus could find themselves with a real battle on their hands. I've got to say, I think this 7th generation Civic will win itself lots of new friends. But the question is, would I buy one? I mean, I'm just the kind of person that Honda are trying to attract. And I've got to say, I think I would. It's a good value car, it's good quality, and what's more, I even like the way it looks. Oh no, a Honda Civic. I'm getting old.
Perfect. Well, we can't all be Crocodile Dundee types, but if you feel you need to up your butch quota, then try this. Grr. It's the Nissan Patrol, and in parts of the world where both the terrain and people can get seriously roughy-tufty, it's seen as being one of the best full-size luxury off-roaders, which on our country roads can lead to a bit of a problem, because they're quite narrow. Hello? Is there anyone around? I can't, no. it doesn't make any attempt to hide the fact that it is massive. Seriously, you might as well get up in the morning, wander downstairs to the kitchen, put the kettle on and start the house and pull away on the school run with the kids still in bed. It is that big. 3-litre direct injection diesel up front. Nissan used pretty clever technology to squeeze every last ounce of power out of it. Boy, do they need it, because there is a huge amount of car to move along here. You're very much aware of the unsprung weight, the weight of the wheels and the suspension and the brakes, all the bits that are after the suspension springs, which makes it feel rather ponderous. That said, for something of this size, well, it ain't bad. It's got adjustable stabiliser at the back on the anti-roll bar, which means when you're driving on the road you can switch it on and it'll stabilise out some of that wobble and roll. As soon as you go off-road, you don't want that, so you can switch it off. And that gives you a hint. It might look big and brutal, well, it is, but it does have on board a huge amount of technology. Of course, one of the advantages of having a car as big as a football stadium is that you can fit loads of people in it, and with a third row of seats folded out at the back, you can get 7 people in with ease. But it is very, very big, and you can feel rather lonely. Hello? Hello, is there anybody else in here at all? Hello? I'm lonely up here. At last, this is what I've been waiting for all day, my chance to put this thing through its tests out here in the real world. Now, come on! Oh my God, this is so boring. Well, come on, not everybody lives in the middle of the Andes or the Pyrenees. In fact, if ever you were to get into difficulty off-road, this thing is more than likely to get you out. That said, let's be honest, we are talking mounting the curb outside the wine bar here being the limit of its explorations. We've got electrically adjustable seats in pretty much every direction, air conditioning of course, electric windows, heated mirrors. We've also got a rather nifty electric compass, none of those nasty stick-on round ones. This one up here digitally gives me an indication as to where I'm going. I'd rather know what road I'm on, but it's nice to know I'm going west-ish. If you really are determined to hit the rough stuff, it's got pretty much everything you could need. Obviously it's switchable between 2-wheel and 4-wheel drive, and there is an extra low ratio 4-wheel drive gearbox if it gets extremely rough. If it gets even rougher than that, you've got a remotely switchable diff lock. Nice. Now let's be honest, I don't suppose anybody ever bought one of these by accident. Oh, they said afterwards. Didn't realise it was an off-roader. Well, obviously it is. And if what you're after is an off-roader capable of carrying 7 people in luxury and comfort and towing the house they came out of, then this is it. Yours for about 32 grand. If though you're after a big luxury car, then you might be looking elsewhere. Still, it's certainly got presence. Right, that's enough macho nonsense. I need to get in touch with my feminine side. Somebody bring me on an MGF, I think. With running a car getting more and more expensive, you might want to look at ways to save yourself a bit of money. Buy a smaller car that has a smaller engine, is more fuel efficient, and with reduced taxes on offer from the government for cars that pollute less, it could be something on the used car market that you're after. Perhaps like this. The baby Peugeot, the 106. Now this is one of the early examples from the range, first introduced in 1991, so you'll find those early examples on something like a J plate, and they run through until 1996 when the 106 underwent a fairly major facelift to make it a much smarter and more refined small car. However, these early 106s are good cars, cheap to buy and insure. We're talking Insurance Group 3 for this 106 XM. And because of that, they make either ideal city cars for nipping around town or as a first car for a teenager. That is, as long as you're not over 6 foot tall, because the interior is a little on the tight side. Not too much headroom there and pretty cramped for rear seat passengers as well. Equipment level on these base 106s is also pretty limited, to be honest, so look out for one of the many special edition models like this for those nice little extras like, well, a sunroof. Out on the road, like most Peugeots, the 106s are also good to drive. The steering is sharp and precise, the brakes are good,
and they're just such easy cars to manoeuvre. Now, a 1 litre engine producing only 45 brake horsepower doesn't sound a lot, and it isn't. So these cars do tend to struggle when they're laden with extra luggage or even extra passengers. So you might want to look at one of the many other engine options available in the 106 range. So what sort of money should you pay for a 106? Well, something like this on a K-Reg with 68,000 miles on the clock would set you back about £2,000. An M-Reg 1.3 Rally with 60,000 miles, about £3,500. And a top-of-the-range 1.6 XSI on an N plate starts to look a bit expensive at about £5,000. If you fancy a diesel, well, go for something like, say, an N plate 1.5 graduate diesel, which would set you back again about £3,500. Now, the key to these Peugeots is small car at a smallish price. Most 106s are in the price range of about £1,500 through to £4,000. And there have been no major problems since the car was first introduced, if you can live with these rather silly little door handles. This is my used car tip this week, the Peugeot 106.
Loads more cars to come, of course, on Motor Week. This, by the way, is the much revised Citroen Xsara, featuring the new corporate Citroen front end. This is the hot version, and if it bangs your gong, keep waiting, because in a few weeks' time, Ginny Buckley will be putting it through its paces. But I'll see you after the break.
I've got a choice for you, a BMW 3 Series or a Volvo. No contest really, you want the Beamer. But take a look at this. The S60 really is a very clever combination of Volvo's elegant S80 flagship and the stylish C70 Coupe. The car might have the flowing lines of a coupe, but on the inside it's down to business, and Volvo delivers a typically functional and high quality interior. Unfortunately for Volvo, beating BMW's 3 Series demands considerably more than just a nice body. You need to compete with the Germans' legendary reputation as the ultimate driving machine, and that means a great chassis and sweet engines. But they've got off to a great start with these seats, which have to be the most comfortable I've sat in. Volvo is one of those nice cars you feel instantly comfortable in. Steering is precise, it's got a very composed feel on the road, very assured. You can drive it at pace or you can just relax, but it feels very, very sure-footed, driven hard, whether it's on twisty roads or a motorway. The S60's fast, very fast. The 2.3 litre 250 brake horsepower is capable of 0 to 62 in just over 7 seconds, a top speed of 155, and that puts it into the territory that can beat the majority of 3 Series for performance. This Volvo is also a wonderfully easy car to live with. All the dials and everything are perfectly to hand. I like touches like the integrated phone system that's actually into the dashboard. And it's got a very handy on-call emergency link-up. If you have an accident, it's linked directly to a central computer that informs the accident services of exactly where you are. And that's a real bonus for ordinary people. The BMs might still have the sweetest sounding engines, but Volvo's got its own little ace when it comes to sound. It's got an absolutely superb sound system. On the engine front, it's a case of turbos or us, with the choice of 3 blown engines and a straight 2.4 litre. Buyers of Volvos expect the very best safety package, and passengers on the S60 get wrapped in a blanket of the very latest safety technology available. There is no doubt this is the sexiest thing to come out of Sweden since dear old Ulrika. And it completes a remarkable transformation from Volvo, from makers of boring boxes to really dynamic motors. There's no doubt it's a worthy rival for the 3 Series, and even better is the price. Volvo have cut the price of the S60 before it even arrives in the showrooms in November. And at £25,795 for this top-of-the-range T5, it's a good £2,000 cheaper than the equivalent BMW. And even better, it's quicker.
The coupe market is flourishing. There's probably never been a wider choice of shapes and styles for buyers to choose from, which makes the pressure on manufacturers all the greater when it comes time to introduce a new model into an increasingly fashion-conscious marketplace. So we've chosen 2 of the most contrasting coupes available today to take a look at. We have a timeless classic in the elegant and understated shape of the Peugeot 406 Coupe. And contrasting very much with that, we have, well, a rather loud new arrival in the shape of the new Toyota Celica. Like so many before them, Peugeot went to styling legend and hero of the drawing board Pininfarina for the shape of their new car. The result is beautiful, a blend of curves with details you will keep discovering as you live with the car. One look is enough to know that this shape is certain to become a future classic. Inside though, I'm less impressed. The dashboard from the 406 saloon may have been glammed up with a few chrome instrument bezels and an admittedly tasty chrome gear lever, but it's not enough. I was disappointed with the interior of this car when I first saw it at launch, and I've been consistently disappointed every time I've climbed into one since. At first glance, it seems the Celica can't make up its mind whether to be rounded or sharp-edged. Overall, it's a fairly curvaceous shape, but it's made up of all these starkly cut-in straight lines. And at the front, well, it does make quite a bold statement, and it certainly gets some attention. At the rear, though, I think it's ugly. And that attention-grabbing exterior is complemented by an equally striking interior. There's no doubt there's a lot of thought gone into this, some of it not as successful as others. Looking at the dash itself, it's a bit like sitting here with Darth Vader staring straight back at you. And if you want to frighten the kids in the back, just do that. It isn't unattractive at all. The only problem is terrible quality plastics. Tap it anywhere and it feels very cheap and tacky. These racing seats are very comfortable and they look great, but perhaps rather thin for a longer journey. But the best thing of all about the interior is the driving position. Almost on the floor with your legs straight out in front of you, you feel like you really are about to take off in something a little bit sporty. And on first pulling away, that impression of sportiness is born through that low slung driving position, makes you feel a bit special. But the next thing you notice is the steering. It's very, very light, which is fine, but it's pretty numb. It doesn't seem to tell you much of what's going on. That can't be said about the gearbox though. It's great, very, very slick action, 6 gears as well, which is very handy when you get to motorway. It gets a bit crashing over bumps and perhaps it's a bit much through town, but as soon as you start to press on a country road, you do appreciate that lack of body roll and the control you feel you've got over the car. Now in a real sports car, boot space is about as relevant as sleeve length on a tank top. But a coupe is different. It has to be able to demonstrate some real practical tourability. So what have we got? In the case of the Celica, it's not too bad. It's quite shallow, but it is fairly square and sensibly shaped. All fairly useful and practical. But what about the Peugeot? It's huge. I know it's corny, but you really could hide a body in there. Come on, out. If the Peugeot looks a bit of a smoothie, it drives very much the same way. The ride handling compromise is nigh on perfect, as is the weighting of the steering. It's pretty light, but communicative. You know what's going on. The gear change may be a bit long in the arm, but once you've got used to it, it is slick. It's definitely the best of the coupes if you wish to have your driving ability flattered, and the easiest to hustle down your favourite cross-country roads. It's also the most serene place to be. This interior may well boast all the stylistic passion of a Formica worktop, but it's very, very good at making you comfortable over a long journey, turning the 406 coupe into very much a long-legged cruiser. This particular one has the 3-litre V6 engine. It's perhaps fairer to compare the 2-litre version, on price anyway, with the Toyota Celica. And in fact, there are those that say they prefer the 2-litre, and that the loss of the smoothness of the V6 is more than compensated for by the loss of weight up front and the subsequent improvement to the handling. Look, if we're going to be realistic, then it makes no difference whatsoever which of these two I decide I like the best, because any car in the coupe class is going to be bought primarily by looks, and looks alone, and that's entirely a personal thing. I will tell you that for me, the sight of the Celica at first made me shudder in my boots. I did not like it. Now though, well, I've changed my mind, and I do like it, and that's something I would probably whisper in the pub. But if I were to be buying one of these two, then it would probably have to be the better all-rounder, the elegantly styled Peugeot 406 Coupe. For you though, it could be either of them. It could be neither of them. There's no shortage of choice at the moment. You could go for a Fiat Coupe instead, or a Ford Kuga. What about a BMW 3 Series Coupe, or a Volvo C70? Oh, a Mercedes CLK. There's some seriously hot kit for you on the programme next week, when I'll be pitching the BMW M5, possibly the ultimate super saloon, against Australia's Holden HRV GTS R. See you then.